Christian Mamas. We are three Christian moms with a progressive mindset and loving hearts and minds. We are imperfect humans, but we're all loved in God's sight. At some point, we've all felt like the church and Christianity may not have been for us, but God isn't looking for perfection. He's just looking for you.
We are not experts in Christian theology, and we do not represent any particular Christian faith or church. We are simply here to be authentic, and we hope you join us on this journey.
Welcome back.
A little bit of confusion over who goes here.
We're recording really early today.
We are.
So.
This is really early for
On a
us.
summer day.
All of us are still like on our first cup of coffee and not our seventh.
I was a little bitter this morning. I was like, 9 o'clock.
So, in case you just mistakenly found your way here, this is Messy Christian Mamas. This is Kendra.
This is Kaylee.
And this is Ashley.
And yeah, we're all happy to be here. It's a nice morning outside,
It is
too.
nice.
It's
It
not like
is.
oppressively hot.
Right.
Yet.
Right.
I say this time of the year is like the devil's butthole.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's a really funny
Right.
cartoon going around. It's like the weather today, and it's a sketch, and it's the devil farting on this town. And I'm like,
Brad shared that in
yeah.
our staff meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
He puts a meme in our staff report every week.
I love it. I love that.
I know I was thinking, I was like, maybe I'll go for a hike today. I was like,
No.
I'm not going to go outside.
I'm not gonna do that. This is
So gross.
sounds awful. And it's not even as hot as it's going to get, and like that
Oh,
is
yeah.
what's so like nerve-wracking. Because
Right.
you're just like,
Just
I'm
the
so
beginning.
hot now, and I'm just like, it's just gonna get worse.
And the humidity.
I know.
I feel like we're really turning into Florida, too, because we have a thunderstorm every evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really, my dad has been so like mad about this weather, and we go to Florida on Wednesday, and I'm like, you do realize like we don't escape that, like
Right.
we
It's
go to
Florida
where this
weather.
is the norm every day.
Right.
Okay, so today we are going to do Psalm 23. And a little bit of backstory about why we're doing this is I have said multiple times on this podcast that I'm a red letter Christian. Like, my faith is based on the red letters. I like the Old Testament. I think it's great for history. I think it's great for stories. But I'm not, like, that's not where I find my faith. That's not where I grow my faith. So I was very surprised when Psalm 23, like, enraptured me. Like, grabbed a hold of me and really convicted me. And the past couple of months have been really, really stressful for all of us here. But I was going through a personal attack, and I felt like the enemy kind of took my distraction and started really working on my spirit through other means, through my friends, through my family, through my job, through my parenting, through my mental health, physical health. And I was getting to the point where I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning because I just knew that I was going to have to fight. Like, I knew I was going to have to be stressed and deal with that stress. And it's so wearing. I mean, y'all know, like stress is so wearing.
Well, those constant psychological attacks that would wear anybody down.
Yeah, and it's just you get to a point where you're just like, I don't have any more to give. Like, I don't, and you're not being refilled fast enough in order to keep giving, because you're constantly having to put up walls and constantly having to put up your guard.
Well,
And I
you were
was
being hit
doing-
from so many angles.
I was
and
being hit, like, it was
usually
crazy.
You're getting hit from one direction, you can find peace in another, but it's so hard when you can't. There's no peace to like grab onto.
It was super, super crazy. And this video, I'm gonna play it, and we'll post it on our social media as well. This video, I firmly believe that God talks to me through symbolism and through signs. I think God is very much with the times. There are so many times that videos or songs have crossed my path that are just like very timely and, you know, very appropriate. And this video popped up on my Facebook feed, my TikTok feed, my Instagram feed. Like, I was like, God, I get it. Like, you want me to read Psalm 23, I understand.
For the video talking about symbols and signs, so what is the meteor and the earthquake that happened this past week? I was like, are we having an Elijah moment? Like, what's happening?
I'm sure for those people who saw it, it definitely
Right.
was, especially with like everything that's going on right now. I'm sure it was like one of these things where it's like, do we
is
have a
this?
bunker? Do we have canned food?
Right, where's the
That's
cave?
ready. Do we have water? Yeah, I can't imagine. Like my anxiety's just starting to like dissipate. I can't imagine what I would have felt like if I saw the meteor. This video popped up and I'll play it, and then I immediately saved a video. And I listened to it a few more times, and I kind of forgot about it. And then the song Still Waters came out, and there's a line in Still Waters that says, because anxiety hates Psalm 23. And I went back and I listened to the video again, and I'm not a huge fan of the King James Version of the Bible. And so I read Psalm 23 in every single version, but I feel like the King James Version is just such a beautiful... So, like, when we talk about it, it'll be in the King James Version as well. But I'm going to go ahead and
That's
play
the same one
video.
that I
It's
to.
I don't like it for anything else, but like the Psalms, I think the King James Version, it's poetry, and I feel like King James Version does a very beautiful job with the poetry. So this is the video.
My shepherd, that's a relationship. I shall not want, that's supply. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, that's rest. He leadeth me beside the still waters, that's refreshment. He restoreth my soul, that's healing. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness, that's guidance. For his name's sake, that's purpose. Yea, thou walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that's testing. I will fear no evil, that's protection. For thou art with me, that's faithfulness. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. That's discipline. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. That's hope. Thou anointest my head with oil. That's consecration. My cup runneth over. That's abundance. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's a blessing. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord. That's security. Forever. That's eternity. Face it, God loves you. What's the most valuable is not what we have in our lives, but who we have in our lives. It's not what we have in our lives. It is who we have in our lives.
So the lady who also
real country. She's real country.
She's real country. She's 80 years old, and I love our congregation here because we do have an older congregation that goes to our church, and I love them, and they are so full of wisdom, everything. But when I saw this video, I was like, oh my gosh, she would do so well.
Yeah.
Marilyn Lehman would love her. They would be like best friends. So we're gonna go through, and we're gonna go. I wrote it all down. I had to watch this video like 8 times in order to get each part. I could have made it much easier for myself and just written it down first, but whatever. I like to do things the hard way. So we're going to go through line by line and just kind of break it down because I feel like she broke it down so beautifully, and there's lots of, fruits of the Spirit in here and everything like that. So that's what we're going to do. So the first line is, the Lord is my shepherd, which represents relationship. So I feel like that is a symbol, that is an image that is used a lot, and is one of the images that kind of transcends Old Testament to New Testament. We don't have a lot of shepherds nowadays, unless you live in like Peru.
Not literal
like
shepherds.
literal shepherds.
Yeah.
I feel like it's important. Like we teach, I teach Sunday school, so I think showing what a shepherd actually is kind of important, because this new generation, they don't really know what a shepherd is. So what would be like a modern day version of a shepherd? Like what would you use if like a kid asked you, what is a shepherd? Well, like do you have is there like a modern day equivalent to like
I mean, I think there are a lot of figurative shepherds in our lives, like teachers.
Yeah, because when I think of the word shepherd, I think of like a gentle and a nurturing relationship. So maybe moms.
Yeah.
Maybe, teachers. I like that.
Yeah, because it's like someone who is keeping the herd together and like making sure that nobody like goes astray and like, you know, counting. So, like teacher, I think of like a teacher on a field trip, like
Choir directors. Choir directors are shepherds.
Crossing guards, like you're just like herding everyone across the street, counting, making sure everyone's made it. I always think of a teacher like on a field trip, like when you have to do the count like 8,000 times and you miscount like one time and you're like scared to death that you've actually lost a kid at the High Museum or something.
But like grandparents too, because they're not as much of the disciplinarian, but they're like,
Right.
you know, the nurturing. They're all nurturing.
Right.
Yeah, they're there. Even like
Some pastors.
Pastor Miriam.
Yes, but
Yeah.
Yeah, she's such a good shepherd. We love her.
We love her. We love you.
We're such
You're
a
listening.
fangirl of the
Yeah.
Miriam fan club. The next line is, I shall not want, which is supply. And I really kind of struggled with this because I feel like in our society today, like it's all about wants and not about needs. Like, so when you say like, I shall not want, it's one of these things where you're just like, but I want everything. And I want to have a good job. I want to have a nice house. I want to be married. I want my kids to be successful. I want money in my bank. I want my friends to be healthy. I want my family to be healthy. Like I want.
And this balance between gratitude and wanting more for your life, and like where that balance is. Like I don't think it's a bad thing to want your life to grow and to want more abundance, but also to have gratitude at the same time. It's just a balancing act.
Well, God also says in another one of the Psalms to give him the desires of our heart, right? And
Yeah.
so it's not, I don't think it's a bad thing to want, but I feel, for me at least, this verse is more like, give those things to him and let them go and surrender them and trust that he will provide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I trust that like what you do have in your life is what you need right now in order to get more. Because I think a lot of people concentrate on what they don't have.
Right.
And what they do have. And I think that's where this line, like, I shall not want, there's another version, and one of the other versions says, like, I lack nothing. And I think a lot of people think they can't get the life they want because they're like, oh, well, I don't have a college education, or I don't have a good paying job, or I don't have a partner, or I'm a single parent, or I'm this, I'm that, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that. I think people really focus on what they lack and not what they're actually given. You know, we've seen stories throughout history where there are people who come from nothing who gain everything through hard work, perseverance, trusting God, you know, going down the paths that God has laid out for you.
But I've also known so many like very rich people who are extremely miserable.
Oh, yeah.
So it's that like gratitude still like.
Which I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how you can be miserable with $60 billion. Like,
Right.
I'd be so happy.
Think about how complicated your life gets. Like, we would see this so much in LA. Like, as soon as there were these beautiful houses, we'd be like, oh, I'd love to have that house. And then you drive by it and see, oh, wait, they have like a whole lawn care team that's working there. There are people in uniforms walking into the house. And it's like, oh, so they now have to employ all of these people to take care of this property that they have that they want. And it just like feels like life becomes so much more complicated. You're not just buying the house, but you're buying into this whole other lifestyle that you then have to maintain. And that feels stressful and I'm sure overwhelming at times if life gets difficult.
There was a mansion for sale down the street from where we live, and Charlie was like, oh my gosh, it'd be so cool to live there. And I'm like, you can barely keep one room clean.
Right?
I can barely keep one room clean. We're gonna go from having to keep 2 rooms clean to 20 rooms. Like that's impossible.
Plus,
like,
big houses just feel like creepy and haunted.
I don't know. If we do our compound idea, Ashley, they might not.
I will just never be there by myself.
Yeah. Ashley and I talked about doing a messy Christian mama compound. I'll move into like one giant house. Everyone has a different wing. We'll be fine.
I like it.
It had to be like an E shape. Everyone has a different wing.
Right.
Okay.
Also feel like when with that verse we all have a purpose too. Like God has given us all a purpose on this earth, and sometimes that purpose doesn't involve riches, doesn't involve monetary abundance, and abundance can mean so many other things, right? And I think that can be hard for some people to wrap their head around, that you don't need all of that in order to accomplish what you're here to do.
I think it's especially hard for people who maybe had that and then, like, through circumstance lost it. Like, so I think if you go from a position of privilege to then through life circumstances, you're now into a position that you used to look down upon, and I think then it can be a lot harder for someone to then turn around and be like, well, how do I appreciate what's happened to me? How do I have gratitude? When you've always had that, like when you've grown up with nothing, or if you've grown up in hard circumstances and then things start to go right, I think it's a lot easier to be grateful. I think it's easier to go up. Like, the gratitude is much easier to have when you're going up from nothing than coming down from what you think is everything. So I think this is an important line, that people then need to realize that supply is not what they're demanding. Like, it's not that. Yeah. It's not physical supply.
I think it's not always like material. It's not always money. Sometimes it's friends. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, health. Yeah.
Sometimes it's working in the right area that's going to bring you joy and fulfillment, and maybe you're not in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of different things. Shelley Jakubowski, friend of the podcast, said this thing to me, and I'm sure she'll be listening at some point, and she will correct me if I say this wrong. But she was talking about how when you're asking God for things, like, help me, give me this thing, she had this realization, like, God's really helping you to be closer to Him. And so you're asking for these other things, they might not be, like, relevant to that cause.
Yeah.
Essentially. Sorry if I'm paraphrasing, Shelley, you can correct me.
So the next line is, He maketh me lie down in green pastures, and meaning rest. And I feel like in this day and age, rest is something that is very looked down upon. I think when we see people, maybe there's a slight change because we have the self-care kind of revolution happening, but I think that also gets manipulated and like people, especially moms, are constantly having to justify rest and constantly justifying self-care. And I think rest looks different for many different people.
Yeah.
What I might consider rest might be very stressful for someone else. Someone might think exercise is rest. That is not rest to me. Rest is like being stationary. And not on a stationary bike, like completely stationary is what I think rest is. So I just love that image of He makes me lie down in green pastures. That Bible story I really like, when He's like, take a nap, hydrate, rest, eat a snack. Like, God is telling us that, you need to just lay down in the grass sometimes and just take a rest.
I really struggle with this. Actually, just yesterday, I was like laying on the couch for most of the day. There's just like this voice in my head, like, you better get up and do something. You need to do something, and like, I really don't have to do anything. Like, I can just lay on the couch.
I really don't want to. I don't have to.
Right.
I follow this Instagram account, The Nap Ministry. Have you guys seen it?
That's amazing. No, but I love it.
It's really
already.
Good. Yeah, it's good. You guys should check it out. But yeah, they're all about naps.
That's great.
I have that shirt that says Jesus took naps. Be like Jesus. Like, I'm a strong proponent of naps. I'm a strong proponent of rest. And I feel like a lot of these issues that people are dealing with these days, whether it's mental health issues like anxiety, whether it's physical health issues, heart disease, and, all these different types of things. And I feel like it's because the body never gets a chance to rest unless you're sleeping. And people cut into their sleep and they are on their phones right before they go to bed. And so their REM sleep is disrupted. Like, I just don't feel like this is a nation of rest. There are nations in the world that make rest a priority. Like, restaurants close, shops close, you take a siesta. You take a mandatory rest, and those people live much healthier.
Might need to move.
Lives. They just leave, like, they're just healthier in general because they prioritize rest. They prioritize taking a moment and just for joy and for just calm and peace. And
I find too, a lot of times if I'm stressed about something and I need a solution, then if I go to sleep, like it shuts down that voice in my head that's not helping me, but only causing the stress to become more amplified. If I rest, if I go to sleep, then sometimes I feel God can speak to me in a more profound way through my sleep, through that more subconscious mind.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think in Green Pastures too, like we have a couple of people here at this church that really promote, like, or who are big environmentalists, and just through listening to them has made me more aware of how like restful nature actually is. Like, we have a beautiful lake here near the church that you can just go and like there's chairs all around it and you just go sit and watch the water, and it is very restful. It is very peaceful.
And there's something
Yeah.
about like gratitude for God's creation and all of that too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
I love
the
how they're so
bugs,
passionate.
I don't know.
I love how they're so passionate about the environment.
They
I
are.
know.
I love it.
And
I
it's
wish
so,
I could
it's
get
so
back
awesome.
past like my issue with bugs. I don't know, you guys. I really have a big issue with them. Like you're not gonna find
Well,
me
you're
laying
allergic
down
to
on the
bees.
ground.
I remember the first time you
So-
guys came over to hang out with me. We went to like the fire pit out in my old house.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I like found out quickly you guys were not outdoorsy
No.
people.
I am outdoorsy in the fact that I will drink on the patio. That is my outdoorsy. Although we like going to we like going to Chattahoochee Hills. That's a really nice place.
Yeah.
'Cause that's where all the waterfalls are. And those are that's nice. They're not as buggy. So
Yeah.
I feel like they do a good job with the bugs. I don't know what they do. There must be a lot of lemon balm like around. Bugs don't really bother me, although there has been a bumper crop of flies this year, and so and that
there
has
has been a lot
just
of
been
flies.
like
I just bought a fly
super
swatter.
annoying. I don't know how many times I have said at my house, I sound like my dad growing up. Like, close the door.
Right.
I do too. It drives me crazy.
Dollar Tree has these
My
really
husband
cute fly
and
swatters with
daughter.
like a flower on one side, so it's
Cute.
So it's decor.
right.
And then I can kill flies with it.
It's
It's a pretty
funny,
murder weapon.
right?
As we've been looking at houses, I saw a picture of one and it had a fly swatter like in the kitchen. And
you're
I was
like,
like,
nope.
no. Absolutely not.
That is not a good sign.
It's so
You should have
funny.
taken it down. Should have immediately emailed their agent and been like, they need to take
The
that
house was
down.
completely empty, but there was a fly swatter in the kitchen.
Oh,
Come on.
no. Yeah,
It's so funny.
No. No.
Okay, we're on a tangent.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Reel us back in.
Yeah, Psalm 23.
He leads me beside quiet waters, and that is refreshment. And we have talked before about how all three of us feel like bodies of water really do kind of refresh
Oh, yeah,
our soul.
absolutely.
Like, we leave for the beach on Wednesday, and I am so ready to just sit by the water and just look out in the ocean, have my headphones in so I don't hear, like, the squawking of seagulls around me, and just look at the water and just let my soul be refilled, because that is where I get most of it.
Yeah.
There's so much peace in that,
So
you know?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Even like rough water. Like I have a fear of open water. Like I like being on land looking at water.
Yes, same.
The big reason why I won't take drives my mom crazy why I won't take a cruise, because open water just scares me.
Oh my gosh, have you seen the Poop Cruise on Netflix?
No.
Y'all gotta watch it.
Okay.
The Poop Cruise.
Well, my parents are cute. Like
Even
my
more
parents
you
are-
want to go to cruises.
Yeah, my parents are big cruisers, and I have like tried every single like horror story to like get, and like nope, they are just like nope, we like it. We're going. They're going on Mediterranean one next summer. So
Your
I'm just
mom
like,
was just telling
go
you.
for it. I was like,
Oh,
she's
wow.
like all excited. So I'm like, all right, go for it. I'm not going. I did tell her that I thought I could do a river cruise because you see land the entire time.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're not a strong swimmer. So even if you fell overboard, you still would have made it to land. I was like, yeah, but in my
You could like
head,
float. You could float
I
to the side.
think
I can see it.
I could.
right.
Someone's more likely to rescue me if they see me fall from land than in the middle of the ocean. So anyway, so this is that refreshing. But even rough water, I just find like waves in general, like that sound has always been very peaceful to me. Like
Yeah.
listening to waves.
That is my happy place
I
for
just
sure.
love
is
it. And I
nighttime,
love going to other.
like looking out at the ocean.
This is the
and
first time we're
waves.
going to the Atlantic side of Florida for
Oh,
a while.
interesting.
We usually go
Interesting.
to the Gulf side, so we're going to the Atlantic side this time. And I haven't been. I mean, I used to live in Savannah, so I've seen the Atlantic Ocean, but I'm interested to see what the difference is going to be. But when we went to California, we saw the Pacific Ocean. Like it's so like those bodies of water are so different, and it's just it's to me. All of it's restorative. Like big lakes, restorative. Rivers, restorative. Streams, restorative. But there's something about the
Pools,
ocean.
restorative.
Pools!
Yes.
So great. Floating in a pool.
Splash pad.
Fantastic.
A shower.
Especially when it's so hot outside now. Oh my gosh. Cold shower.
We're
is
into
the
3
way to
shower
go.
days
Yeah.
in Georgia.
Yeah. Oh man. Y'all pray for us. The next line is He restoreth my soul, and that's healing. And I love that line comes right after Quiet Waters, because I think that's where a lot of my healing has happened, is when I just allow myself to sit in a body of water, by a body of water, and just kind of let myself reflect on what has happened to me and like kind of let it heal itself. And I think like He restores my soul, that healing. You know, obviously we have amazing doctors and we have amazing nurses and we have amazing medical professions out there that do their best to patch us back together when we're broken. And there's medical marvels that have happened. We dealt with it personally in my family. But I think there's a different type of healing that happens when you allow the Holy Spirit to come in and fill in all of those gaps, at that Kintsugi moment where they take all those broken pieces and they just kind of solidify them together.
Well, because the word restoration is not just about fixing something that's broken. It's about making it better, right? When you restore something. And so restoring your soul, yes, He's fixing your broken parts, but He's giving you more for what you've endured.
Yeah, making it stronger. So that when you go through those times, because we all know suffering happens, it can withstand it. And I think that like if I hadn't done the healing that I did, I wouldn't have been able to go through the times that I've gone through. Like I have to constantly remind myself that I have survived 100% of my bad days till now. So there's no reason why I can't survive this one. So if I've made it through everything that I've made through, then these obstacles that I'm going through are not nearly as bad as ones I've gone through in my past. So I can get through it. It's inconvenient, but like
Yeah.
I love that.
still
Edge,
get through that.
The Edge Got In podcast. She's always saying that he doesn't waste her suffering. That like if there's something to be learned from that suffering.
It's a purpose in it.
Yep.
The next one is for guidance. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness. And that is His guidance. And I feel like, for me, His guidance comes in the form of my gut. And those feelings that I have, or that hand that I feel on my shoulder, that's like, or the hand I feel over my mouth, that's like kind of guiding me into the paths of righteousness. That gut feeling that you have, like, this just isn't the best.
Gosh, this has been what I've prayed like 1,000 times this year. That I'm like, what's your will? I want to hear your will.
Yeah.
I want to do your will, just over and over and over again.
And sometimes I find, like, I'm a gut person too, but sometimes I find I'll try to walk through doors, right, that I think are the path that He's leading me down. Slams it right in my face. And it's because that wasn't the right one, right? Yeah.
Or you immediately get a tummy ache. And He's like, I told you, now you have norovirus, so good job. Good job, Barry Wood. Good job thinking that you knew what to do. Lean on my understanding, not yours.
Right.
And then the last part of this little verse, it says, the whole verse is, He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. So He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness is guidance. For His name's sake is purpose. And Kendra, you already brought up purpose. And I think that sometimes we try to justify the paths that we're taking for our own purpose. Like, well, this is what's going to be best for me and best for my family and best for me professionally or personally or financially or mentally. And we ignore the path because we feel like God's path might be harder or it's going to be full of
Oftentimes
more
it is, yeah.
obstacles.
Right.
Yep.
So we're just like, oh, we're going to take this. And then, but then we realize that the easy path isn't the easy path because we have to U-turn and go back down the original path where we're just like, well, that was stupid. We should just, we just listened to begin with. We could have been fine, but
Yeah, I think it's also like being more like Christ or being more leading a holier life, right? Yeah.
then one of those famous lines from this psalm, though I walk through the valley of shadow and death, and that's testing. And I will say, like, I can never hear this line without thinking of the first time I ever heard Psalm 23, which was in the movie Titanic. And that's what I think of every single time.
Oh no.
The priest is holding on to the back of the boat. That's just the line he says. And so every time I hear that line, I immediately think of Titanic. Look, y'all, I went and saw Titanic 9 times in the theater. So
Wow.
I was
That's a lot.
a big fan.
It's a lot
I
of
was
time.
like
It's a very long movie.
11 when I came out. So yeah, so I think this is testing. These are times of trial. These are times. This is what the last 2 months of my life has been, and I always say
Or
that
the consequences of your own actions.
the consequences of your own actions. I always say that my depression is like a valley. That's why I have the tattoo that I have on my arm, and that and it goes with the next line. I fear no evil, which is protection, and there's a line that song Graves in the Gardens where it's like, the God of the mountains is the God of the valley. There's nowhere where you can't like paraphrasing, but there's nowhere where your light can't find me. And I think, when people are going through the valley of shadow and death, when they're going through these valleys of depression, when they're going through these pits of despair, you really don't feel like light can find you. And I think it does take people who've gone through those valleys to turn around and tell you and say, I know you feel like there's no light at the end of this tunnel,
Right.
and that it's eternal darkness and it's all of this, but even if it's in the form of a firefly or dim starlight, there's always light that can find you. And that I will fear no evil. That is something that fear I allow fear to grip me so hard. Yeah. And these last couple of months, I've never felt fear grip me as hard as it did. Going through what I was going through with my family. And I really had to really lean into this phrase of, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And that is faithfulness. So just being faithful to the idea that God is constantly with me, that his light is constantly shining on to me, that I can be scared, but I can't be fearful. Like, you can be worried, but you can't be fearful. Like, you can be scared of what's going to happen, but you can't be fearful. You have to trust that God is leading you through this and is going to lead you through it. And then it might not be fun.
Right.
It might be scary.
And sometimes,
but there's an end to the haunted house. Like, there's eventually going to be an exit.
Sometimes there's not as much comfort in that, where you're facing the absolute worst things. Like, we have friends in our lives that have just gone through that personally. But yeah, I can't say those two lines, I fear no evil, separately. I fear no evil, for thou art with me.
Yeah.
It's like the beginning of the
Right.
sentence and the end of the sentence. Right?
Yeah.
And to me, the antithesis of fear is bravery. And that, like, I think we're always going to feel fear. Like, that's just, like, the response. The fear is going to be there, but to counteract it, it's bravery. And, like, make that conscious decision to be brave.
It's not the absence of fear.
Yeah.
Right? Right.
Well, I think
facing
that's
it
what
and
that's what
carrying
courage and bravery is doing things even though you're scared.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a beautiful, C.S. Lewis did this beautiful kind of writing on courage, saying that, when you are on the front lines and you're seeing the guns pointed directly at you, you're going to be scared, but you're gonna do what what you're gonna do anyway, because you believe in the right. You believe that good will conquer evil. You still will walk through the valley. And I think that a lot of times, especially when things are really, really hard and people are going through really, really tough times, through the loss of a loved one, or through a loss of circumstance, or just mental health problems, physical health problems, I think it can be really easy to be like, well, you said for me to lie down by still water, so I'm in this valley of shadow of death. Let me just lie down here. I just want to stay here. But it's dangerous to stay there. You can get lost in this valley of shadow of death, and that's why you have to say, okay, you're with me. I just need to get to the other side of this. The other side of this might not be paradise on this earth, but at least there'll be light, and at least there'll be some comfort, because there's no comfort in the valley of shadow and death. You can fool yourself into thinking that it's comfortable, but it's much more comfortable on the other side, where there's seasons. The next one has to do with Ashley's favorite word, which is thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me, which is discipline.
That's not my favorite word.
It's a concept that you are passionate about, and we love the fact that you are very passionate about your Christian discipline, especially when there's another one here, me, who desperately lacks that discipline. And I had a really, I really thought about this, and it was because thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me, and I really had to think of discipline, how discipline can be comforting. And I remember a parenting class that I did that, was talking about how kids crave structure, and that discipline is actually a sign of love. And so, because parents who don't discipline their children don't care.
Right.
So I think there's you obviously go to the extreme end of that, where you discipline too much and too harshly, that obviously can go too far. But I feel like parents who take the time to correct their children and to discipline them, it's the same thing that our Father does for us, to give us laws, to give us, a book that we can read and we can focus on, and we can do devotion from. I think that's, to me, that's how discipline is comforting. To know that my God cares enough about me to discipline me, that I care enough about my daughter to where we have boundaries, and there's consequences for stepping over those boundaries. I feel like God has the same thing, So thy rod and thy staff, those aren't comforting images, but when you think of Christian discipline, of reading your Bible and praying and listening to Christian music and going to church and being part of doing devotions and reading your Bible with others and having going to Sunday school groups and having small groups, those are all disciplines that are comforting. We talk about all the time about how coming to church on Sunday is soothing to us, that's comforting to us, because we know we have people here who love us and who want to take care of us and who care about us. And
I've always seen this line in a very different way. And this is I was just saying during our last break that I say this prayer every morning. I used to say it every night, and then I read something from this person on social media that was use that one in the morning so it starts your day off. And I like the prayer, so I don't know if it makes too much of a difference when I say it, if I'm honest with you. But
both times.
But the way that I've always internalized this verse is more for when I feel attacked. That I feel like his rod and his staff, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me, are used against my enemies.
Yeah.
And there's, I don't know, it's almost felt like in defense of me.
I think, it goes with the next line. Thou preparest a table for me before thine enemies. So thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table for me before thine enemies, which is hope.
Yeah.
And so there's hope that God is using this discipline against your enemies. You are going to be able to sit at a table with your enemies, and there's hope that there's think you're gonna get through that dinner. Like, you're not gonna be poisoned.
I was gonna say about discipline. To me, discipline, it's just how you get results. Discipline and habits, like being in music,
Yep.
being in dance. It's like if you have the discipline of doing something over and over again. I remember trying to learn how to do pirouettes in dance, and I practiced probably 3 hours a day for 2 weeks straight until I could get those pirouettes. Yeah, but I was like, it was that
Dizzy,
discipline
dizzy
of
just thinking about it.
I'm gonna get this. Yeah, but that's how you get to the goal.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think you can be successful in anything without discipline, without maybe an extreme stroke of luck. But then to keep it, I think there is discipline. Charlie was blessed with this beautiful gift of being able to sing, but if she doesn't start disciplining her voice and she doesn't start taking care of her voice and
Using it the right
treating
way.
it like an instrument, then it's gonna go away. It'll eventually be damaged. So so discipline is really important, which is why I haven't been losing weight, because my discipline of going to the gym has been nada. Dad did say something about joining the gym with me and doing water aerobics with me, and I was like, oh my god, I would go every single day. Dad in the water aerobics class with me with all my 80-year-old
Yeah,
lady
that'd be great.
He's so fantastic. He'd be so popular. Oh my gosh, I love him. The next one is the word that I had to look up because I knew what it was, but I didn't know the exact definition. So it's thou anointest my head with oil, which is consecration. So when I looked up the word consecration, and it just means making something holy, and putting it aside for the use of God. So our baptism is kind of our first symbol of consecration, where we're being put aside for God's purpose, how our lives are dedicated to God's purpose and God's will. But it's in the same of when the pastor consecrates the bread and wine to become communion, when a bishop is consecrated into becoming a cardinal. There's lots of examples of consecration.
Consecrating your house.
Consecrating your house. That's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I knew that's something that you did.
I do.
And I remember watching a video. I thought I might have sent it to you. And so a woman, she couldn't find wine, so she used grape juice to consecrate her yard. And it was so precious because she had just learned about it, and she was just so excited. And all these people were making fun of her and being that's not. And I'm like, I don't think the tool matters.
Right.
I don't think using grape juice versus wine, using olive oil versus canola oil. I don't think the actual thing matter. I think it's the act of, I am doing this to consecrate my house, to make my house a holy place, to where when people walk in, they feel God's spirit here. And I was so I put my little 2 cents in there. I was I'll need to leave her alone.
Yeah, I have consecrated olive oil in my house, and I don't use that olive oil for anything else. And then I say a prayer, go to all my doors and my windows and all sorts of things like that. And I even do it
cool.
to outlets.
Oh, interesting.
Just because there's so much, well, not anywhere really close to the electrical part of it, but there's so many things that can come through the internet and the television and things like that.
I burn sage.
Yeah,
It's probably not the same thing.
but I think it's a similar
I don't
idea.
think it
intention.
matters.
I think it's all about
it's the
protection.
intention.
And there really are scientific studies that sage
Yep.
burns up bacteria.
We used to have, so my grandmother used to send palm crosses every Palm Sunday. She would mail them to us that had been consecrated by a priest. So there was this little church that she used to go to where the kids made palm crosses, and then the priest would consecrate them, and she would send them, and we would put them over, I still have one, over my office door, over my bedroom door. We have one going into our house, and these are crosses that she passed 6 years ago. These are crosses that have been up there now for 10 years, and we'll never take them down. Yeah. And Charlie and I now make palm crosses every Palm Sunday, and we say a prayer over them. I think one is I think you can get there can be a debate over what is truly consecrated. Does a pastor have to consecrate something, or does a person consecrate?
I do a
something?
layman's consecration.
Yeah, so I feel I can consecrate if I pray I'm part of the prayer shawl ministry. So when I'm making a blanket or a shawl, I'm praying for that person as I'm making it. So I feel that is that is a type of consecration. Like, I am putting this aside for God's purpose, for healing, for comfort. So when I give that to that person, they can feel that as I give it to them. When we're making palm crosses, we're praying for protection over these people. So when we give them to someone and they decide to put it over their door, they put it in their car, we're offering some sort of protection. Now, there's no magic in this. There's no mystical thing that we're trying to imbue. All we're trying to do is saying that we are putting this aside for a holy purpose, and that this is just a visual and physical symbol of God's healing power, God's protection, or something like that. So I feel like some people can get really, really into be like, oh, well, you shouldn't do that because that's blasphemy or sacrilegious or anything. I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, you just, again, everybody has an opinion, but whatever you want to do. I mean, our pastor has said, like, every morning when you wash your face, if you just make the sign of the cross with water, you're rebaptizing yourself every morning. That's a type of consecration. You're putting yourself aside for the day for God's purpose. But people can debate about it if they want. I don't care. The next one is my cup runneth over, which is abundance. Yep. And so we go from this I shall not want to my cup runneth over, which is abundance. And that is all Holy Spirit. Like, just, yeah. And then we have surely
Especially
goodness.
It comes after discipline, though.
Yes.
I just want to point that out.
Yes.
You know?
Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, which is a blessing. Mm-hmm. And then I will dwell in the house of the Lord, which is security forever, which is eternity. And I think that is where our ultimate payoff comes through. That, you know, there are people who suffer their entire lives and have a hard life their entire life and don't get that abundance and don't get that payoff until they have reached heaven's gates, and then they're in paradise. And I think that those people accept that, and they're okay with it. Again, I think it's this constant up rather than someone who feels like they've been pulled back.
I have that visual of there's rooms for everyone in my Father's house.
Yeah.
You know, that I've got my own suite.
Yeah. It's gonna be so many different decorations. So when I did the AI overview of Psalm 23, there were 3 main points of why to say this psalm and why to say this prayer. And it's trusting, comfort, and recognizing. So it's trusting in God's guidance and provisions. And I think that's really hard for us to do, especially as independent women, especially as moms. You know, we're so used to providing for everyone and being and guiding. Like, that's our job. Our job is to provide and guide our family. Like, that is what our purpose is as moms. And I think sometimes it's hard for us to trust in God for our own guidance and provision, because we're like, well, I'm doing it for everyone else. I can obviously do it for myself, but we have to allow God to guide us and to provide for us.
Yeah.
Comfort in his presence, and then recognizing his protection. And I think sometimes it can be hard to recognize his protection. I think sometimes it takes time to look back and see where God was protecting you.
It's those closed doors, you know?
Yeah. I think sometimes it's those unanswered prayers. It's those opportunities that you thought you missed that actually turned out to be blessings, and things like that. So I think sometimes recognition happens later.
Yeah.
Especially as you get older. I think when you're young, it's hard to recognize protection.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when your parents turn around and tell you, no, you can't go to that party, or no, you can't drive by yourself, or no, you can't wear that, or no, you can't do that. As a young person, you buck against that because you're just like,
Right.
I know what's best for me, and you're just being so unfair, and you're being so unreasonable, and all these things. And I think it's much later when I look back to my teenage years, I'm like, oh, well, that's why. Especially now as a mom, I'm like, well, that's why my parents told me, no, you can't do that, or no, you can't go there, or no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, because
Right.
they were protecting me, and I think
Yeah.
it's the same thing with God. You have to look back sometimes and be like, oh, that's why he said no.
It makes me think about when I had to leave my last job. I loved my job at Burgess Peterson. I loved it so, so much. It was a big part of my identity. And when I had to leave, I was just very, very upset about it. But, like, getting the job at Rising Star, I got it 2 weeks before school started. That was absolutely just a God moment that happened. And it felt, like, very protective. And it has protected me for a while now in different ways. Yeah. And not just, like, financially, not just, like, a job, but also, like, opening up new avenues of exploring music production, which has been
You've
fascinating.
learned so much, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's definitely a God moment.
Love that. All right. On that note, should we
I'm gonna say that's
pray
it.
us out?
So for prayer, I'm just going to
Let's do it.
read the Psalm 23 again. So, the Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of shadow and death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table for me before thine enemies, and thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Messy Christian Mamas. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram. Until next time, embrace the mess, share the love, and shine your light bright, my friends.